why aren't the traditional quad 4 positions working, or why something like an XLE, bullish trading trend, when it's not traditionally a product or certainly an asset class that you would have exposure to. So the biggest thing to me is, the signal trumps the quad, right? And coach says this all the time. And I think that's just something that you got to be very comfortable with, right? So the signal trumps the quad. The signal is ever changing, is dynamic, and therefore, it can go for bullish trade and trend. And a few days later, a couple of weeks later, it might completely reverse itself and go back to neutral, to bearish, right? So I think that's you just got to be kind of comfortable with the uncomfortable and the fact that the signal is going to kind of trump the quad. But in general, if you could pull up the back tested data, I think it's was that slide? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So in quad 4, right, for instance, if we go down to the kind of U.S. equity side of things, consumer staples, utilities, REITs, those are some of the top 3 general components, and telecoms in there too, right? So, if you go to the traditional XLC, communications ETF, that has been absolutely bearish, trade and trend for quite a while. But, a couple of the biggest components would be are Google and Facebook, right? Google and Meta. So that you got to kind of also understand what's inside of those ETFs to understand why maybe communications isn't working. Because if you go to the flip side of that, and you kind of leverage something from Friedman in T-Mobile, right? He's sort of that's on his on inside of his long kind of exposure. That's been that's worked out pretty well, right? I don't know if that's a technically bullish trade and trend, but that again, you can kind of go back and forth in terms of sort of maybe looking underneath the hood to figure out, okay, are there pieces inside of this that traditionally back test okay, but but maybe the whole ETF or the whole sector itself isn't working. Conversely, just this week, if you're an ETF Pro subscriber, you got the update that Keith added XLP and XLV, right? So he did that, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. And so those are kind of, again, XLP is something. So consumer staples is a traditional sort of back tested quad 4 long, and it's been now added to the playbook. So that's, and also to your daily risk ranges, right? So it's bullish, trade and trend here on the page. Energy remains that way as well. And there's actually a good little use case from, I believe it was the Q2 macro themes deck. This is a great example, right? Where just reiterating the fact that the signal trumps the quad, and basically new cycles. We've never been in this environment before, and there are idiosyncrasies, but the process remains the same, right? So we want to be long, bullish, trade and trend exposures and inventory in our portfolios. And therefore, we can, think kind of from both sides of our brain, I guess, right? And be like, okay, yeah, the quad map is the quad map. But, if something's not working, we're not going to get exposure to it if it's, bearish trade and trend. So a good example here has been, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, how we recently added XLP and XLV back to kind of, we're on TTF Pro, and we're still long XLE, XOP, and corn, right? So those are, basically commodity exposures that would traditionally not sort of, quote unquote, work in a quad 4 environment. So hopefully that kind of clears that up in terms of why things aren't working. The biggest takeaway there is just the signal trumps the quad.